Okay, we are live this time now, Dave, on a new stream. Apologies if anyone was waiting for that. Uh,
Sorry.
a little bit of flailing there. I'm just going to quickly update socials. Okay, we are live this new stream. Apologies if anyone was.
Sorry.
What are you're making it worse, Dave. This is a disaster. You'd think after 7 months we'd be somewhat more organised than this.
Link. Copy.
Where are you copying it to?
I posted the link in Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I don't think anyone's actually made it to this one yet, so
Mate, 6 watching.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everyone for all this flailing.
Bit of a false start.
Yeah, look, YouTube changed some buttons around, and I think I set it up incorrectly. So let me just save this. And...
Case of the Mondays.
Yeah. All right, Dave, how are you? We've done this briefly already.
No complaints. I don't think I'm going to be able to recapture the fun that we had at the start, but we can try. I'm going all right, man. What's news?
Hang on. I'm going to open this beer first. I've got a red IPA from Bridge Road. Is this nitro?
Not historically, but it might be now. It's always been pretty fun.
I don't think it's nitro. Shout out to Bridge Road for sending me a beer.
Smalley's found the right link.
Cool.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so we were saying I was out and about this weekend delivering patron beers.
Yeah, it was good to see you guys as well. Like, just turn up at my house. I imagine you had a fun little outing.
Yeah, so we hit up maybe a dozen people out there, mostly around north of Melbourne, a couple in Richmond. It was really cool. Some people that I know quite well from beer stuff, some people that I don't think I'd ever actually met. So it's kind of cool to meet people that are supporters that we haven't met. Doing it under the mask was weird. Yeah. A couple of people that I know sort of looked at me confusedly, and I was like, "It's Luke." And they're like, "Oh, right."
Weren't they expecting you?
A couple of people hadn't checked their emails or didn't realise it was this morning. I think I got so Chris and Kate, who Chris is a long-term supporter who I know. I don't think she was expecting me.
Yeah, right. Or yes, coming to the door, I guess.
Yeah. Particularly in a pandemic, you're not really getting that much visitors on a weekend.
Exactly.
But it was really cool, and so that was the first round of our deliveries. So we'll be doing more deliveries this weekend to the rest of the people around Melbourne, and then posting things out as well. I just need to get all the boxes sorted for that.
I saw Begsy post about drinking it. He loved it, so I'm pretty excited. Have you tried any of them yet?
Yeah, I tried it a couple of months ago before they were labelled, and it was really good. Shout out to Dollar Bill for making incredible beer.
And just giving us the chance to get up and sort of like dictate the blend as well.
Yeah, totally. It was a fun experience, and I'm looking forward to more people trying it and letting me know what they think. And same with you, Dave. Letting me know what you think.
Yeah, I certainly shall. I've got a vague memory of what it was like, but it's almost like trying a new beer.
Well, yeah, and it's weird because for ages I think I was the only one that's tried it.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's good, but who else knows? I chatted to Ed from Dollar Bill, and he also really liked it as well.
Nice.
Just taking a sip of water. I've been out in the sunshine all afternoon with Phil Cook, who was a previous guest on the show. Just drinking some beers and having a chat. Shout out to Phil for hanging out in the park. It was good times.
Hey, Phil.
Have you been out and about now that Melbourne's open again, Dave?
Somewhat. We went to Jamshed on Friday after work. That's the closest sort of place to my home. So they've got a little walk-up area. So I'm kind of sick of booking. I mean, I've done it twice or whatever, but I'm sick of booking places to go. I just want to be able to rock up somewhere and do it all.
It makes it a bit stressful, doesn't it?
Yeah, just sort of puts a bit of a rush on it. It's making you especially if they're 2-hour windows, you sort of you've always got that countdown going. You've got to be there on time. If you're late by any stretch, you're taking time out of your little allocated session. So yeah, just being able to just rock up and have a little wine. It was beautiful.
So I caught up with a friend of ours and went to Littlefoot here in Footscray. So we booked that one. A little bit of Two Birds on Tap, which was really lovely. Lovely sunny courtyard this Sunday afternoon. Down to Bar Joe, a podcast favourite. And again, we managed to get a walk in there, which was really cool. And a sneaky pie from Pie Thief.
What'd you have? Talk to me.
They had a Dan Dan noodle pie.
That's fun.
Yeah, I really like Dan Dan's become a lockdown dish in our house. So like, spicy Chinese Szechuan kind of style. I think it's Szechuan. There's Szechuan pepper in it anyway. And then we went to Mr. West.
Let's just not go past the pies for a second.
Sorry, did I move
How
too
is
fast?
that pie-ified?
So it's beef mince is kind of the basis for the noodles. So there's a little bit of noodles in there. There's the beef mince, the spicy mince, and they had like a spring onion relish kind of vinaigrette stuff that they can put on top. And it was, a real delight, real tasty. And then you're down to Mr. West, who have got a lot of outside seating in the Footscray Mall there, combined with Slice Shop Pizza, so they've kind of shared that space. Lots of tables, doing it all through the app, order through the app. So, it was a really positive experience. The vibe, certainly at Footscray Mall, the vibe everywhere was really good, but at Footscray Mall there, it felt like it had always been there, and it kind of, it was good.
That is good. We went also to we got a coffee and a breakfast sandwich yesterday at Rat the Cafe in Preston here. Maybe it's Thornbury. Probably Thornbury. And they've got like 4 tables outside or whatever. And it was just nice to sit out in it was a nice day. There was like a dog walking around beneath a kid who was dropping food to get some scraps. Like all these things are like, you don't really you would never think about that as a thing that you would like to see. But when you haven't seen it for 6 months or whatever, it's like, hell yeah.
It's
Bonnie.
It's kind of weird, the things that you go, oh, that used to be a normal thing that I haven't seen for 7 months or whatever.
Yeah. I had a bait like that same kid was holding a strong eye contact. Like he hated me. It was so funny. I couldn't stop looking. I just kept looking over, and he's just same what are you doing here, face?
Biggsy is also giving a +1 to Mr. West. I saw he was there Saturday Arvo. I was actually going to swing past Saturday Arvo. I'd been eating some sneaky Vietnamese, and saw that Biggsy had opened. Saw later on social media that he'd opened a Cantillon. So
that's the way to get back into the rhythm of things.
Ed Sam's just mentioned in the chat the new Hba Eclipse Hop Pack was advertised through social media today. So that's Hba 016. The hop has finally been given a name, known as Eclipse. And they've released, I think it's a 12-pack that you can get. I know Beer Cartel have it. And all different beers featuring that hop, which is I think that's a really cool way to do it. Yeah,
great idea. It's like the next evolution of the single hop education thing, beyond the same beer brewed with the different hop or whatever. Just all these different ways that flavors can be expressed using the same ingredient.
And quite a diverse bunch of breweries as well from all around Australia. So really cool concept. And it's pretty rare that I go, oh, I'm going to definitely buy that big box of beers. I guess one of the things I have doing a show like this, I get sent a lot of random samples. So I've just always got 16 of different beers, and it's it sounds like such a weenie thing to complain about, but you just want a consistent beer. So it's rare that I look at a mixed thing and go, I'd like to try that. But that's certainly. Now, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Mr. Banks Off the Top Rope, which is a double dry hop IPA. Pretty classic Mr. Banks hazy IPA. It's really good. I think it's real fresh, if I'm not much mistaken. It's sort of right in the zone, actually. It's about 4 weeks old.
Yep.
Just tasting great. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of the style, but I find it hard to pass up a Banks version of those kinds of beers, and it's sort of proving why I should. It's really great.
There's an interesting thing with these styles in terms of the modern double dry hop, somewhat juicier style of IPA, where people are kind of recommending fans of the beers are recommending people hold on to them for a month or so to let things mellow out a bit. And I haven't really seen anyone talking about this, officially. But it's kind of an adjustment from, say, when we first started getting into beer, where IPAs were super fresh. If you didn't have it on the day it was canned, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I remember back in the day seeing like very annoying videos of people in America who had like a Pliny the Elder, and they were like looking at it. It was like 16 days old, and they were just tipping it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like you.
even as a joke to trigger you, it's still dumb.
Yeah.
But now there's kind of and something I don't know too much about in terms of the science of it, but to my understanding, a lot of the kind of the hazier stuff does take a little bit to settle once it's been packaged. But yeah, I'm keen to hear people's thoughts on that.
Something that I chatted with Chris from Mr. Banks about. I can't think of what it might have been the second drop. Can't remember, but we were talking about it, and I think it was the day he went and dropped them at all the drop points. And I asked him about it, and he goes, "Tasting really green. Maybe hold off for a little bit." I was like, "Oh, interesting." And we talked about it for a bit. It's like something that you never really 2 years ago even just would not be talked about, like holding off on hoppy beer.
Yeah, and I think it's changed so quickly in terms of that style's come out of nowhere, essentially, for a lot of us, for a lot of people, that there isn't that codified language around or expectation around what it tastes like on day one versus the 3 months. So, and I guess the thinking would be, because it's so volatile, things are going to get mellow and get less exciting after a week, but it seems to be the opposite's happening.
I guess also like it's such a boom style that a lot of breweries are not doing that sort of research behind it because they've got to just get them out because
Yeah.
it's going to sell. So yeah.
Yeah, keen to hear anyone's thoughts on that if they have had experiences with holding on to hazy beers for a month, 2 months, 3 months. So there, I've got the Fat Man Big Red Sack Red IPA. Christmas beers. We're in Christmas already.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought?
This is a pretty classic Ben from Bridge Road approach to a tradition. It's not a typical Christmas beer, but it's more suited to an Australian Christmas, perhaps. But I always like that beer. How is it?
Yeah, it's really yummy. I'm really full. We had fish and chips tonight on a whim.
That's probably top tier stomach filler fish and chips.
Oh yeah. And and then Emma had been a shepherd and she made some cake for her family, which she brought home, a couple of slices, which I said, "Can you bring me home some cake?"
Yeah.
And then I ate some cake, and I could probably like a chocolate raspberry flourless thingo. And so a red IPA that's 2 standard drinks is feeling probably a bit much right now, but I'll enjoy it.
Nice, I like it.
Now, so this episode, this is the kind of the first in our solo shows for the Monday 8:30. So we're going to be looking to do this if you're watching on Beer Together on YouTube every Monday. But we'll mix it up with guests, but no guests will be just chatting beer news, and we've got some beer news ready to go.
Just ready to go. I love it.
It's actually quite handy because the Thursday beer news show that I've been doing, my computer crashed right at the last hurdle, and I hadn't been saving.
Damn it.
But that means we've got plenty.
These days?
Sorry?
What does a crash mean these days?
Well, I think I can recover it, but by that time it was 6 o'clock on Thursday.
You're going to call the Thursday news.
Yeah.
A session for it.
And look, my mood at that point was not super positive, so I thought a good thing to chat about with Dave. Do you have the list up? Did I have it up?
I've got every article open, so...
do you want to start with one?
List if you want. Hang on a second. Sam's just brought up the fact that back in the day when a lot of us were cutting our teeth on craft beer, he bought the hype US IPAs and thought they were poor compared to local stuff. I think even a bit before that, we would get those IPAs and think that was the pinnacle of hoppy beer and I think brewers did too, and sort of like we're probably making a crystal malt sort of sweet IPA by design. When we all know, I went to the States in 2015, and I had a race of 5 at a dive bar. No guarantee about how fresh it was there, but it was fresher than we had it here. And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. That's why they talk about this like with reverence.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all of that. What do you got for us news-wise?
News-wise, first cab off the rank, we've got the Big Cartel survey.
So the big news from that, the winner of the Australia's favourite beer was Black Hops.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations to the Black Hops team. But the really fascinating one from that was Deeds Brewing.
Jumping 114 spots to claim 5th.
Yeah,
and I get it.
People are really loving Deeds at the moment, and they're doing some really interesting beers.
They're like cranking out a lot of different beers, all at. I mean, I can only get my hands on so many, but like they all seem to be at a pretty high level of quality. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
One of the interesting things, there was a story in Brews News about hazy beer selling really well in BWS. And I think I don't know where the story was generated from, but of course, hazy beers, like the stats where it's grown by X percentage, but it's coming off a base of essentially zero.
Yeah.
At BWS, but they mentioned Black Hops GoaT, GoAT hazy, as being one of the kind of leaders. So it's kind of fascinating. While that poll is craft beer drinkers and aimed at craft beer drinkers, it's still 17,000 people.
And they're craft beer drinkers who wouldn't exclusively buy at craft shops. So when they see those brands at the BWS and the Dan Murphys or whatever, probably just gravitated towards it.
Yeah. So seeing kind of hazy beer and then a brewery that's not Stone and Wood or Bolter hit the top of the list is quite interesting,
isn't it? I don't think I've even had that many Black Hops beers. So like it's sort of just, it probably does it for a lot of people. Sort of brings them into the purchase conversation with a lot more focus.
So we also got second in the podcast rankings behind Radio Brews News.
Almost got it right.
Yeah, I mean, given our complete lack of organisation this year and actually releasing content, thanks so much for everyone that still voted for us, because that's really cool.
And so Black Hops are the darlings who won the coveted prize. And I mean, it doesn't take too much. So 4th place podcast was Black Hops Operation Brewery. So
and that was interesting because
Black Hops, that's one.
They've only released one podcast in the last 12 months. I think it was one. And I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it because that shows their fans are like super committed, and I think that's probably what most breweries want. They're a super committed fan base. It's testament to something what they've built, I think.
Mm-hmm. Next year, number 1 for sure for us, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a formality, dude. I think it's a formality.
There was a couple of other interesting things. But I mean, look, no, there wasn't that much more interesting from memory. Those were the 2 things that stood out for me. Anything stand out for you when you looked at it?
There was a lot. It was heavily focused around COVID behaviours, which makes a lot of sense. But it did seem like it was a lot of statistics that told similar stories, and not that surprising. It's kind of cool to see it in data form, but interesting to see like a big swing in obviously in online purchasing. I was like, I haven't done any online beer purchasing. So
how have you been getting your beers?
Going to the local breweries that have got a takeaway permit or whatever. I've been getting out there. I was going
to say we're certainly blessed living where we are to have access to breweries. But then I was looking at the number. I saw the Courier Mail, and I think it might have been in conjunction with Queensland government as part of the craft beer strategy. They've got a kind of a government-led craft beer strategy up there happening at the moment, and there was like 100 breweries listed in Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. There. So I thought that was interesting because I certainly couldn't name 50 of them, probably. It
That's
was
way
weird though.
too
The Herald Sun or the Courier Mail, sorry, that their angle for the story was really weird. It was like there was a line in there where we're revealing the true owners
Oh
of
yeah, I
these
saw your post
breweries,
there. It's like, all right.
and a lot of them did. Some of them did mention the owners, but like a lot of them also didn't, and it certainly wasn't why the list was there. Like, it was
Yeah,
just such a weird like we're going to reveal the owners. Like
but
no one,
also like I can't imagine. I can't imagine the demo that's clicking that going sick. Can't wait to find out who the real owners are.
yeah, and I looked at Bolter because I'm going to look at that to see, and it said CUB. Okay, but like I guess technically it's Asahi now, so they didn't even reveal the true owners. They're failing at their mission.
They really are.
But anyway, it is really legitimately good to see a map like that because it's kind of hard to keep that keep that updated. So hopefully they keep something like that updated, and it's a good resource for people, and we can find the true owners behind the scenes.
The sleuths will be on the case,
Yeah.
definitely.
What's the next thing we're going to talk about?
Next thing on the list, let me refer back briefly, is the Victorian Container Deposit Scheme.
Yeah, this is going out, and I guess this needs to be included because I haven't seen much talk about it at the moment.
First hearing about it was today.
Yeah, so they're going out for breweries to put in their points of view. They're looking for feedback on the proposed scheme. So, and these schemes are quite complicated to read, and I certainly am not going to pretend I understand it, but they are taking a lot of influence from the New South Wales one, and there was a lot of problems with that, with registering beers into the scheme and returning beers, and the machines weren't quite working as they should have.
Do you know how the machines work? Like, what do they recognise?
I think they're recognising barcodes, but that was early on. There's a lot of teething problems in New South Wales, and then once they got it up and running, and please, if anyone out there knows more than this about me, correct me. But it's my understanding it seems to be working okay. People are using it. I think there's 4 billion cans returned through it, and
It's a lot of cans, isn't there?
a lot of it is community. So community groups will have a machine on site, and then they get that money. So people use it as a fundraising.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, that's happening in Victoria, and I guess the government is looking for feedback on how you think it should work, and if you're a brewery that's had to deal with ones interstate, and you're a Victorian brewery, you might want to have your say now. You got the URL there for us, Dave?
I do. It's ugly, but I'll pop it in the chat. If anyone wants to check it out, there's a like a Word document that probably presents the information in a bit more of a palatable format. But like when I was going through it, I was like, from my understanding of what this is, gee, it's a lot of like pre-work, and there's a lot behind what's a fairly simple concept.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've seen, even things like whole containers is a problem for the 360 rip lids that a couple of breweries use. And yeah, my understanding of the New South Wales one, it was a bit of a mess at the start. So there's no national system as well. It's not one thing. So it's quite complicated. And I think, if you are a brewery that might be impacted, check it out. Make sure you have your say.
Definitely.
What else we got?
Next up, we have got Afri are buying Sweetwater.
Oh, yeah. So New Zealand, this is kind of weed related more than beer related.
It's extremely.
So New Zealand didn't legalise weed, but a lot of states in the US did legalise or decriminalise. I think it's 16 states now in the US, and Oregon decriminalised a lot of drugs, if not maybe all drugs.
I think all of them, I think.
And legalised mushrooms or psychobilin, which is crazy for you don't think of drug policy being that liberal anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be like a pretty strong body of research for that to pass, you'd imagine. So
Yeah, and I think that's the New Zealand one, and I will sort of lead this on to beer because it is certainly around. It was designed to be harm minimization more than just making it legal. So really controlled. You could only buy it. You couldn't buy it at pubs. You couldn't smoke at a pub. You had to go to the cafes, like say in Amsterdam, smoke there, buy there, or at home. You couldn't smoke weed in public or anything like that. And anyone that sort of lives in New Zealand will know it's very easy to get weed, and you'll know how many kids, teenagers, even younger than teenagers, have pretty easy access to it. But what we're seeing now in the US, with it now being controlled in a lot of places, people are starting to pay attention from the beer world, where weed companies bought a brewery. Um, there are products like alcohol, beer adjacent products with CBD. Um, it's a little bit fuzzy around putting CBD, which is the relaxant, and THC, which is the stuff that gets you high. You certainly can't put THC into a beer. I don't think any regulator is going to let you combine the two. But I know in bars you can get CBD cocktails, and I think a couple of breweries have done CBD beers.
seems to be like a massive growth product in the last few years. Like, if anyone listens to any American podcasts, you've definitely been spruiked CBD oil or CBD related products um, ad nauseum almost. So it's almost like a sense of normalcy, at least. The advertisers like a health product almost. So like you can really see momentum behind that part of the plan.
It's jarring, isn't it?
Yeah,
How
well,
just
jarring
how
when you think about it, I guess.
yeah, just how regulated it is, or
Yeah,
illegal it is here, and how people, and even in the states, across the border, you end up in jail for something that people are using openly.
for sure. But I think it's also the matter of like who in Australia like wants to get behind that. Like, is it politically worth it to do that?
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing about New Zealand. It was a left-wing government landslide, and Greens had some big moves in terms of their vote. Yet the weed bill got voted down.
So when I heard about the weed bill in New Zealand, I thought it was like my feel was like this is going to happen in New Zealand because it seemed like a more accepting culture of it. What was the problem with the bill? Like, why did it get voted down? Do you think?
There was some scare campaigns from the no side.
Right.
So part of the bill was you could have to buy. The most you could buy, I think, was 14 grams, which is half an ounce, which is a crap load. And people were like, setting a limit on it meant that no people said, that's 36 joints a day. No one needs that much. And kind of failing to realize that you can buy 20 bottles of whiskey a day.
Yeah.
No one's going to drink that much. Same with that amount of marijuana.
Yeah.
No one is smoking 36 joints or whatever it was a day.
And also, like, you don't have to buy everything that you consume for that day.
Yeah, like,
you can stock up a little bit.
but the tagline of 14 joints a day really did a lot of damage. Oh, sorry, 14 grams a day, like outrageous. And yeah, so things like that led to a bit of a scare campaign around it. And rather than the harm minimization and the positive aspects in terms of, think in terms of tourism, I think there would be, particularly now with the travel bubble, realistically looking for between Australia and New Zealand, there's a hell of a lot of people in Australia that would travel to New Zealand just to get high and listen to that sweet reggae we have over there.
What a vibe.
Yeah.
What a vibe. Steak pie as well. Oh.
Yeah, pies everywhere, and yeah, so that's interesting, and it would have impacted the beer industry for sure. It kind of goes hand in hand in Portland, where people are kind of the two industries I think are really close, and it's probably a similar demographic. So this purchase of Sweetwater was $300 million.
Big. Yeah.
So that's a big. And
I never realized how big Sweetwater was anyway.
how big are they? Did you learn?
Like, I think their revenue from the previous year was like $65 million.
Mm. And I guess another interesting aspect is it's a Canadian company, so Canada has government controlled weed basically.
So yeah, the initial transaction value represents approximately 12.5 times Sweetwater's adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, etc. So it's a big number, but like when I read that first, I was like, that's squillions, but like, I don't know, they're a very healthy business.
Yeah. Interesting. I never would have thought a weed company would be buying out a brewery.
No, and it seems like it's just the start of their plan to expand across different modes. So I'm sure we haven't had the last of Africa.
What else is on the old docket?
Next,
I could probably bring this up as well.
Got a couple of non-alc related items.
So Upflow, which is the Melbourne-based non-alcoholic one, they released a hypertonic beer or beers. I don't know, and I think I went to look it up, and I'm like, it's supposed to be good for sports recovery. So the kind of the whole spiel.
Word. Hypertonic sounds like it's so good for you.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it's good for you. So they're kind of billing them as sports beers. So there was a media release where it was quite a funny media release. They've got just brought it up, Elijah Weir, who's a former Port Adelaide player. Are you familiar with Elijah Weir?
Nope. He on the list, but he wasn't a star.
He says, the quote is, "I drink Upflow hypertonic sports beers to help me rehydrate after games. They allow me to enjoy a few celebratory beers with my footy players without having to worry about the risk of driving home to my family. I enjoyed the clumsiness of that to help me rehydrate after games and beers with my footy players."
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually said that out loud or that was written for him. But
that was like just off the dome. That was just like captured from real conversation. That wasn't clumsily written.
But yeah, it's supposed to be good alcohol-free beers, according to the press releases. It supports hydration due to water, carbohydrate, and sodium content. And I have heard in terms of a light beer is actually pretty good for recovery for that reason.
Right.
You do get some immediate benefit from what's in
nothing
beer.
About what they're doing with their beer. I'm sure that's their angle, but that would be the same for any non-alcohol beer, right?
Yeah. No. Well, so this one. Let me look up what a hypertonic is. I probably should have done that first. Hypotonic.
I want to say hypertonic about everything.
A hypertonic has a lower concentration of solutes than any other solution. That doesn't explain anything to me. Hypertonic drink.
Hypertonic are playing at the Tote in December. That'll be pretty good.
Glitchy techno hypertonic for sure. So it's a type of sports drink. Quickly replaces fluids lost by sweating and suitable for athletes who require fluid without a carbohydrate boost. But in this case, it would because it's got carbs in it because it's beer. Anyway.
Interesting angle. I don't
maybe,
mind
Julian I've chatted to before from Spark, who's behind Upflow, so maybe we'll reach out to him for a chat and he can answer these questions.
I don't mind it. Yeah, because like the alcohol-free beer market has reached beyond and quicker than I thought it would. I didn't really see where it was going that much, but it seems to have picked up. Well, part of the Beer Cartel survey suggested there was a pretty steep growth for it. I'm a little surprised, but that's only a good thing.
Have you had any recently?
No. When we talked to Sober, I was very interested in those, and I keep my eyes keep going down to that fridge space at Carwin, but I haven't done it yet though.
So yeah, again today when I caught up with Phil in the park, I took a couple of the Love All beers from Holgate. Great. Really good. Just
Yeah.
exactly what it needed to be. And Mornington Peninsula of Mornington Peninsula Brewery have released one called Free. So people are really clamoring for that space, less so than a seltzer at the moment. But
Mhm.
and I think my
That's
experience.
like, I just, if I'm not gonna have a beer, I just won't have a beer. Like, I don't need to. I think that gap doesn't need filling personally. So I'm like, I'm glad to see it. It's like much better. It's a good option. It's a healthy thing to be growing in the market.
I'm certainly surprised how quickly I fell for them, for lack of a better term. The ones that I've tried from Big Drop and Holgate and Sober have all thought, yeah, there's probably a place in my life for this, and I
Yeah,
probably would never have said that because you know we talk about the taste and the flavour and all the things that are positive about small craft beer, but we also like getting drunk. Like that's always an appeal of such a
I'm
product.
gonna let the cat in. So 1 second.
Okay. But yeah, Mornington have released one. I the ones that I've had, I think have either been free or bought for shows.
Yep.
So the sober one I bought, it's I don't know if it's going to make a regular appearance in my purchasing habits,
Mhm.
but I kind of would like it to.
Fair enough. It's a good thing to have, I guess, in the fridge. Interesting.
But really, I'm also really enjoying the Stonewood East Coast, which is
So is that
2.7%.
like mid like little spritzy sour, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently there's been some people surprised that it's sour because it doesn't really indicate that on the can.
Oh, what is it called? East Coast Ale.
Yeah, but yeah, that certainly would have a home in my fridge. And it's kind of a good option if you're cooking dinner and you're maybe going to have a bottle of wine or something with dinner,
Definitely,
something
for
that's not
sure.
so intense.
Yeah, I like. I don't think I've seen it. I'm really keen to try it, but I don't think I've seen it.
I don't know how far and wide it is,
Yeah,
but again, that was a sample sent through. So, but I will certainly keep an eye out, and it'll probably find a home in my fridge pretty often.
nice.
The final thing is Shelton.
Big, yeah, big.
So,
Like way bigger than it. Like way bigger than the sum of its parts.
yeah, I think this took a few people by surprise. So, Good Beer Hunting broke the story about Shelton Brothers Distribution in the US going under, basically being in debt for the last couple of years. Looks like the owner's going to lose out personally and potentially lose his house by the look of it, Dan Shelton. But for I guess if people aren't familiar, Shelton Brothers were started in the late 90s, and they're kind of responsible for a lot of the interest in lambic, certainly at that time, by bringing in the lambic breweries and then other European breweries as well. So I kind of associate old school Euro, like high end Euro, with Shelton in the US.
Definitely, definitely.
They also at different times have done Australian brands,
Mm-hmm.
La Sirene,
Lassaran,
2 Meter Tall,
2 meter tall, Moondog,
Moondog,
Bridge Road, I think.
Bridge Road,
Bridge
yep,
Road? Yeah,
and Wildflower. I think that's it. And New Zealand brands. So 8 Wired was always through them into America as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't think any of the Australian brands were doing huge numbers through them currently, or even at all at the moment. So I don't know what the impact is going to be there. But in terms of what that says about the market is quite interesting. Um, there's kind of discussion in the Good Beer Hunting story of those kinds of beers have lost their charm and their appeal now. Um, Purely because there's just as good,
yeah,
in terms of wild ferment stuff and farmhouse styles and Euro styles. Uh, while we all know how incredible Cantillon or Three Fontaine or Duranca are, but particularly in some places in America, you can get that cheaper and easier.
definitely. Yeah, and the cost would become a real factor.
Yeah.
You have great local examples of that.
There's another interesting aspect where they also distributed Prairie and McKellar beers, and then they lost them a couple of years ago with both them. So McKellar, who's also in financial trouble at the moment. There's a couple of stories that could be hunting about that. But they opened their US operations and then didn't need distribution anymore because they were doing it themselves. And same with Prairie. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like a bit of a pillar of the community from sort of 10 years ago or so around here anyway. It was like whenever you found a interesting beer at a bottle shop, you sort of like, I'm a geek, so I would like do a bit of research to see how it got here, and 9 times out of 10 it was Shelton Brothers.
Yeah, so all those labels that would be labelled for the international market. So Shelton would always be on them. Dave Cloughton's asked in the chat, was there always going to be a shift from on-premise suppliers like Shelton to the rise of online retailers? Which is an interesting aspect, but in the US it's a lot harder to do online retail because shipping across state lines officially is illegal, I think, in most states, if not all. But there's a lot of US people buying masses of lambic from Belgium directly. Like huge amounts of lambic is just going into the US through private sale, well, not private sales, but less official retailers, which I think would certainly have hurt someone like Shelton.
Definitely, yeah.
But also, they said 50% of their business was restaurants and bars. So, yeah, it's a bit of a it's a weird one because that's such a name associated with so many things in the beer world. I guess
Definitely
a strong time.
It's like a like a pillar brand, but the more you think about it with your 2020 mind, so the more it sort of makes sense, and you think that the impact might not be too great to the surrounding businesses. Not so much for them. It sounds like a terrible time, but yeah, definitely one that took me by surprise.
I guess there might be flow-on effects in terms of availability for a lot of those beers in Australia.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what the agreements are like in Australia and whether or not anyone has the capacity to take on more. But with, say, Cantillon, their exclusivity, I think, helps them in Australia.
It did at a time, yeah.
Well, I think now, like, they immediately disappear off shelves, whereas Three Fontaine, who I would drink their Gers over Cantillon, not to take anything away from either. They're both stellar, but Three Fontaine sits on
stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think that might have a slightly higher price point these days as well. But the fact Cantillon just gets snapped up so quickly means if you want it, you need to hustle for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, if we do see more availability, what will happen? Yeah. Any?
That was a big one, right?
Sorry.
That was a big one.
Yeah. That's I think all I really had from the news.
That was the end of the list, if I'm not much mistaken. Yes, it was.
Awesome. Well, we'll call this we'll wrap this up. A bit of a short one.
A show, hey?
Yeah, a little bit of flailing at the start. Apologies for that.
Yeah, not our finest moment, but that's okay.
It's they change buttons. You change one button, and it all goes to hell. We'll be back next Monday with a guest. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast and you want to join on the chat, we've had a few people chatting away there. You can
join in.
Subscribe to Beer Together, and also I'll give a plug for the Have a Beer Guest of the Year, which is still happening on Beer Together as well. That's got a really, really cool community. That chat is moving quick with people chatting and really enjoying. I think they're doing a live show, somewhat of a live show with restrictions in place at the Royal Mail Hotel here in West Melbourne. So if you want to get along or join in the chat, I can definitely recommend it. It's a fun way to spend a Thursday.
That's good. I like the idea of that live show. That'll be good.
Yeah. I think that concept will translate to live really well. And hopefully I'll be back sans computer issues with Thursday Beer News this week as well. I've got a much more powerful computer sitting right next to me that I don't use. So
why don't you use it?
So this is Emma's it's Emma's Mac that she was using at home. But then she bought her work computer home. But
Oh, right.
but if I start using
The
that, it
work
means
computer is even more powerful than the Emma's computer.
yeah. And so my laptop is
And you're
old.
using
And
a little rinky-dink thing over there, like frisbee it. Just get on Emma's old one.
well, yeah, but then if things go back to normal, I then lose that and have
Probably
to
what you did
get all my
before.
systems set up. And yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
fair. Okay.
yeah, it's just the challenges of COVID, Dave. I don't know if you've heard of this COVID thing.
I heard it was a hoax, to be honest.
If you want to hear more about the COVID hoax, check out the Hypothetical Institute on your podcast apps as well. We just did an election special, short notice one on Saturday, but we also did, speaking of New Zealand, we talked about New Zealand being concentration camps, full of concentration camps. It's a police state. This theory is getting legs internationally, that New Zealand is just a UN policed hellhole, and you do not want to go there.
So where does that come from?
People are cooked, is the summary of that.
Okay.
They've taken to, I guess the short of it is, New Zealand's doing mandatory quarantine, and if you want to get tested, if you don't want to get tested, you have to stay in quarantine, which I think everyone's doing.
Yeah.
But
so is this like based on COVID?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also tied into a lot of billionaires moving to New Zealand to build bunkers, which I think has been disproven as well. Just a couple have moved there.
No, they're just doing COVID holes, mate.
And also just the changes to gun laws in the wake of the Christchurch shooting. These are all real trigger points for cooked people online to be like, they're taking their guns, they're locking people up. What is happening? And it's a successful left-wing government that's managed COVID.
You know what I just thought? Cooked people must love the internet.
The internet's been a boom for the cooked.
Just everything you could want, any lunatic that wants to hear you. Amazing. They're having a real, like, they're at the peak of their powers, the cooked units.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of InfoWars around the election. Everyone else tunes into CNN, and I'm bringing up Alex Jones, and they're openly calling for
civil war. Doing these days? What's he up to? Openly
calling for civil war. But he's really making a good go of spreading as much COVID as he possibly can. He went at Arizona, there was a protest around the polling booths because they were stealing the election allegedly, and he turns up to this. Arizona's a state of 7 million people, 2,000 COVID cases that day. Alex Jones turns up and proceeds to touch everyone's hand in that crowd. High fives. He's got a megaphone that he passes around. He's given hugs. Yeah.
Tell you what, he might have the last laugh, because if this is a hoax, he might prove it by his actions. What was that? That was about 5 days ago. So in 9 days,
yeah,
I think he might be the one who comes out on top.
As Cam said on the Hypothetical Institute, what if the cure for COVID was weird silver supplements that he's been selling on his website all this time?
Crushing it.
Tune in to the Hypothetical Institute for more of that, because I could talk about that all night. Thanks to everyone for joining us in the chat, and this will run so much smoother next time. We really look forward to seeing you all.
Guaranteed first link will work next time.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.